Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance. In this resistance video, sponsored by contribution from Heidi. And this is a second video I'm doing for Heidi. I did one recently. Remember, the religious narcissist is an atheist. Hi, Ollie. Thanks for doing that first video for me. It was so helpful hearing you read my story and affirm that my father is an abuser and it's not in my head. It's easy now for me to say, yes, my father is an animal, and it's not my fault. The thing that's still bothering me is my mother's role. I spent 40-plus years believing that she was somehow my father's victim, just like us kids were. But with nearly a year of no contact under my belt, I'm starting to see she was a participant in the abuse. And this is a point I make repeatedly on my channel. With no contact comes clarity. And you're going to see people who you thought were victims were a lot of times covert narcissists pulling the strings. I have vivid memories of being lined up with my siblings for my father to beat us over some crime, such as leaving a room without turning off a light or sticking a finger in the butter dish. I recently started asking myself where our mother was in these memories. She was always right there beside him, not hitting, but also not saying a word to stop him. You also don't know what she was saying to him behind the scenes to get him torqued up, and that's usually what you figure out is happening. You find out that the violent narcissist, the overt narcissist, is usually being controlled by a covert puppet master, which sounds like your mother is. The puppet master who, for years, you think is a victim just alongside of you until you go no contact and you get that clarity of no contact and you can see things for how they actually were. There was a time when I was 4 and he took me onto the roof of the house and left me there alone. I was shouting down for help to my mother, who was right there in the garden, but she wouldn't look up, and I had to try and climb off the ladder and ended up falling off the roof. How do you not hear your preschooler screaming for help from the roof? There was a time when the neighbor ran over our pet goat and killed it, and our father screamed that it was our fault and told us to drag the goat across the field, over the fence, and bury it. We were really that's horrendous. But the narcissist always has to figure out a way to blame you. 6 degrees of separation of it being your fault. Like anything that broke in the house, in my house. Somehow, some way, it was going to be by 6 degrees of narcissistic separation going to be my fault. I distracted her. Like one of the most vivid is when the time, my father would tell my mother repeatedly, when the hose is across the driveway, don't drive over it. Don't drive over it. Don't when he's watering the lawn. What does she do? She drives over it, breaks the coupling, the water starts going. Somehow it's my fault. Somehow I got a beating for that one because I wasn't even in the car. I had distracted her with something I had done earlier that she was thinking about, and that forced her not to see the hose, and therefore my fault. 6 degrees of narcissistic separation. We were really small children and crying, trying to drag the goat carcass, while sure that our father was coming at any moment to beat us. Years later, my mother laughingly retold the story and said that they were hiding and watching us struggle while they laughed. Puppet master. Puppet master. Covert narcissist hiding behind the overt craziness, violence of your father, pulling his strings the entire time. They always tip their hand later on in life, though. Always. Shit, and I've told this early on in my channel, when my mother left me with a bunch of gay guys, as like a small, like younger than 5. Some gay guy she met working while shopping at ShopRite. Just met him in the like, hey, you want to watch my son? Invited his other gay friends over. Bad shit happened. I've told this story before. And I was waiting for my parents to get home because I was going to say something. I was up in my room. I hear him. I hear the guy tell my mother, oh, I invited some friends over, that things got out of hand, Matthew got upset. Oh, what happened? Oh, well, you know, one of my friends pulled his dick out. He thought it was funny, and I hear my mother howling, laughing. Howling, laughing. Knew to keep my mouth shut at that point. Knew that was going nowhere. Years later, and I've told this, my mother's telling this story like it's the funniest thing in front of my entire family, my father's side of the family. And I finally said to her, like, do you think that's all that happened? Are you really that stupid? They always tip their hand. They always want to brag of their conquests later on in life. And even as they're bragging, you're still not realizing, I need to get away from this bitch. She's the problem. Not until you go no contact do you get that complete clarity to see things for how they actually were and are. All the times my father left my mother's bed and came into my bedroom and molested me and then went back to bed with her. It wasn't a secret. She mentioned many times that he would get up in the middle of the night to go sleep with his kids. He wasn't sleeping with his kids. He was assaulting me. The time in high school when my father decided that my bedroom was too messy and locked the door shut for 3 days so I couldn't get fresh clothes or a hairbrush before school, my mother didn't intervene on my behalf. But after a couple of days, she went in and got me a fresh pair of underpants to wear. There are so many stories of being abused by my father while she stood by silent. This is what crushes me. Did she ever love me? Nope. She don't love anybody. She don't love anybody. How does my mother watch her kids being abused and never say a word or lift a finger to help? Because she was manipulating. She was the one orchestrating all of it. Because she hates you. She hates her children. Just like in the first video where I say the religious narcissists are atheists, this is her playing God. They believe in themselves as God. So going off of what I told you in the first video and what I've said about religious narcissists being actual atheists, seeing themselves with God as this anything other than God-like behavior. The ability to take your life, control your body. Mysteriously from behind the clouds. It's all the same. It's all the same. I think this is the root of my repeatedly choosing friends who disrespect me and drop me. Of me running off and getting married at 19 to a man who treated me like garbage. Pretty much. I feel that there's a hole in my heart that should have been filled with another's love and will always be empty and aching. I know I have to fill that hole with my own love and respect, but I just can't seem to figure out how. Thanks for listening once again, Heidi. Look, Heidi, you're a year into no contact of decades of abuse. You're not getting over that anytime soon. You're just learning to live with it. You're only coming to realizations now. Okay? Before you can bring anybody else into your life, you got to figure out what happened in your past. You got to figure out who you are. Because I think the only person you have been is the person you needed to be to survive around your family, around your parents, and around the type of people that your abuse has led you to bring into your life to continue the abuse. You cut out the main source, the main cancer, which is your mother, and you're seeing things clearly as how they are. You need to take this opportunity to keep learning and keep figuring things out so you'll be able to work your way back to realize that none of this was ever your fault. That moment you were broken, that moment so you could, and you're going to have to do this every single day, sometimes several times a day, as you get memory after memory after memory. And it happens. This is what I deal with. This is what we all deal with. But instead of going into down that dark hole, that dark rabbit hole of it's your fault, you need to walk back and realize what the root cause is. You need to realize that the person you thought was also a victim was actually the puppet master. I mean, I've seen this story over and over again. The covert, when you realize the covert narcissist, or what you thought was a victim, is actually a covert narcissist puppet master. And that's who your mother really was and is. So I hope that helps. Thank you again, Heidi, for another contribution and story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supporting, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.